Hi, I'm Doug Johnson, and each month on our show we highlight a local professional who shares with us their strategy for life success. Today's guest, a friend of mine, is a great person who practices gratitude. She is a nationally known speaker, coaches, is an author of 7 books, and is just a great all-round person. My friend today is Lisa Ryan. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me here.
You bet. You bet. You know, when I think of you, I think of your positiveness, if that's even a word, and grategy, which is your word.
Yes.
So can you tell us just a little bit about grategy?
Sure. Grategy actually stands for Gratitude Strategies.
Okay.
And it started as a result of a practice that I started with a couple years ago with friends. We started a gratitude journal. And how that even started is we went to a 4-day intensive seminar. And at the end of the seminar, we were driving home from Indianapolis and we were just jacked up. You know how when you go to one of those life-saving seminars?
Right, sure.
And we also knew that unless we took action, we would go right back to where we were before. So we decided to open up a Facebook thread and share with each other things that we learned at the seminar, you know, people we met, experiences that we had. And then just for the heck of it, one of my friends said, hey, why don't we write down 3 things we're grateful for? Okay, did it every day, held each other accountable. And that single practice of gratitude has been transformative in my life on so many different levels that I knew that this was the message that I needed to start bringing to the world.
Super. Well, Lisa, you've been doing that, and we have a video clip of you now. And then I'd like to talk with you a little bit about the road from perfection to gratitude. So here's our clip.
Every single person in my life, including all of my friends in this audience, have failed Mind Reading 101. So unless you take the time to express your feelings to the people in your life, they don't necessarily automatically know. And when's the times that we say the nicest things about people? It's at their funeral, isn't it? There's John, he's laying out flat, and you're extolling his virtues about what a wonderful guy he was. He's not hearing. Okay, he probably is hearing somewhere, but wouldn't have been better to share that while he was still on the planet? I actually think that it should be illegal to ever say anything at someone's eulogy that you did not tell them while they were still on the planet. And sometimes as a speaker, and I know several of my speaker friends in the audience can attest to this, you know when your words come back to bite you and you have to live by what you're saying up here? So I have been saying that eulogy thing for a couple years. And a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to have a final conversation with my first husband who was losing his battle with stage 4 pancreatic and liver cancer. And Jeff and I, even though we had been divorced for many years, we still remained friends. He was a guy that I met when I was 14. I started dating when I was 16, got engaged at 19, married at 23, divorced at 25, because I knew I could change him. So Jeff had been given 6 months to live, and 18 months later, he was still holding on. And he was making his goodbye phone calls. And I was one of the people that Jeff called. And Jeff and I had a nice conversation for a couple minutes, and I hung up the phone, and then my own words came back to me, and I said, if I was reading Jeff's eulogy, would I have said everything to Jeff that I wanted to? And I realized the answer was no. So there's the one little voice, the devil on my shoulder saying, don't call him back, don't bother him. I mean, he's going to be dead soon. You don't want to, he's got to making these phone calls and it's going to be hard. Don't do it, leave him alone. And on the other shoulder, the voice was saying, you need to have that conversation. So I called Jeff back. And we had this amazing conversation where there was closure, and Jeff passed away a week later. And I don't share that story all the time, but sometimes I get moved, depending on the audience, that I want to share it, because generally the person that was supposed to hear it in the audience always makes themselves known. So a gentleman came up to me after one of my programs and said that he lost his wife after an extended illness. And she never wanted to admit that she was dying. And out of respect for her, he never had that conversation. And to this day, he regrets it. So think about that one person that needs to hear from you today, and call them and tell them that you appreciate them. When you tell somebody you appreciate them, you create this beautiful memory. When you write it down, though, you create a treasure.
Lisa, absolutely great video. So now can we talk about that road from perfection to grategy?
To grategy. Well, we already talked about the gratitude journal and the impact of that. And I just want to share a little bit more of how that worked, because I say gratitude journal and people are like, oh, I don't have time to do what I'm doing now, much less spend 20 minutes journaling every day. My journal is basically 5 sentences starting with I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for. And really, I do one in the morning before I get out of bed, setting a positive expectation for the day.
Okay.
Because in a lot of times, I'm grateful in advance. For example, this morning I wrote down that I'm so grateful that I rocked the interview with Doug Johnson today.
Okay.
So it sets that positive expectation. And then, because I've seen so many benefits from the gratitude journal, I actually keep one at night that I call my wins journal, W-I-N-S, wins. And that one is actually a little bit harder to do because it's looking back on the day and seeing what went right. And as you know, once in a while you have a particularly horrific day.
Right.
And to force yourself to find 5 good things about that day, it does a couple things. Number one, it makes you realize that your day wasn't that bad to begin with.
Okay.
And number two, because you're going to sleep in a positive mindset, you actually sleep better. You will, and you awaken more refreshed. And research around gratitude has actually shown that people that have a consistent gratitude practice are awake less time before they fall asleep, they sleep more soundly, and they awaken more refreshed. So I have also experienced that.
Oh, great. How can we get to a place where we can be grateful, though, without having to experience something terrible or have a bad day in order to provide that contrast?
You know, with the gratitude journal, it's important to begin where you are. I mean, there's a lot of people going to be watching this show that maybe some of them are going through very difficult times, other people are experiencing the best times of their life. But what we forget to do is start to acknowledge the average, the everyday. So when I have one of my clients say, oh, Lisa, you know, I'm going through this right now. I just don't have anything I can be grateful for. And I'll just ask them, well, did you wake up in a warm bed this morning? Well, yeah. Okay. When you walk down the hallway, did you discover that you have flushing toilets, running water, and electricity? Well, yeah. Start there. You know, when we start to build our gratitude muscle, no matter where we're starting, it gets easier and easier to find, and that practice is what really gets you through those difficult periods, because while things are okay, while things are average, that you just start to look at the things that you do have, and then when you need to rely on that gratitude practice because you've strengthened that gratitude muscle, it gets a lot easier.
Gratitude muscle is kind of an interesting concept. So as you build that, how do you find that one's personality changes, or does it?
It absolutely does. I never told my husband that I was keeping a gratitude journal. You know, not that it was any big secret or anything. It was just my thing. It wasn't his. But because of my focusing on gratitude, I noticed that he started becoming more verbally appreciative. I noticed that from several people in my life, and I actually conducted my own research, posted a question on social media. And the question was to find out, how do you incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business? And I was thinking, you know, that's a pretty innocent question. The very first response I had, however, begged to differ. And a woman wrote me and she said that you don't need to incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business because there are just people that are going to take advantage of you anyway. And I was like, what do you do with a response like that? So I emailed her back. And I said, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. She emailed me back again. She said, that's okay. I'm a big girl now and I'm moving on. And I'm like, holy guacamole, I'm calling my best friend. What do you do with this? So once again, being the glutton for punishment, I emailed her back. And I said, yeah, this may sound rather silly, but if you would take my 30-day gratitude challenge and for the next 30 days simply write down 3 to 5 things for which you're grateful every day, and at the end of 30 days, let me know how it goes. She emailed me back and she said, well, thank you for being so positive. I'll do that right away. I'm sitting there thinking, who are you?
A little bit of sarcasm there.
No, yeah. I'm like, who are you and what did you do with Grouchy Girl? So about a month went by and I emailed her back, said, hey, how are things going? And she said, it's really interesting. I haven't been feeling that much difference, but I went on vacation and other people noticed. So when you decide, I'm going to start this gratitude practice, I'm going to commit to 30 days of writing down what I'm grateful for every day and making it different, adding a little bit of detail to it. You know, if every day you were writing down, I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my dog, you know, it would get really boring really quickly. But if you start writing down and acknowledging, I'm so grateful that my wife made a delicious dinner last night. You know, it's great to come home to my dog wagging his tail and excited to see me. So really getting into that emotion of gratitude, you will start to see the difference. And it takes literally less than 2 minutes a day.
Now, if you look back to your very early journals, how are those different from the journals that you write today?
I actually love going back and reading my journals because you can actually see the ups and downs of what was going on in my life. If I was going through a period of time where I was writing in my journal, I'm grateful that the sunshine is out today.
You know that's not out.
It was a little bit different than I'm so grateful for the awesome half-day workshop I gave yesterday, or I'm so grateful for this person that I met. So it kind of just gives you the ebbs and flows in life. But what it does is it really starts to just even that out so that you're even in the, you know, I forget who said it, but you know, the best of times don't last and the worst of times don't last. And when we can just come to that even keel, that when we're going through some hardships, to find that one good thing. When we're going through the really terrific times, to acknowledge that and experience it and feel the true blessing of that. But we're always looking for that one thing that we can be grateful for after getting through the rawness of that emotion, that anger, that pain, that depression, that whatever we're going through. Feel that, experiencing it, and then looking for that one good thing. And it just takes practice. So that's why I talk about it as a muscle, as your gratitude muscle, because when you first start out, it may be difficult to find. But as you're working on it, it gets easier and easier. We get stronger and stronger. And it really, it's brought me through some pretty significant changes.
Okay. You've also said gratitude is not for wimps.
Absolutely.
So going with the muscle building and wimp, how does that work?
Well, it was almost a year into my gratitude practice when I was tested for the first time. I was in medical sales at the time and having my best year ever. I had just closed a large account. I was number 5 in the company. I was well on my way to winning the sales trip for the first time. And I was invited to an organizational announcement. Frankly, I didn't think anything of it because I was having such a great year. I was safe. Well, on that call is when I discovered that my position had been eliminated, effective immediately.
Okay.
There were 12 of us on the phone at that point that we were just gone. And in that fear, in that confusion, in that not knowing what I was going to do, it came back to, okay, I've been keeping this gratitude journal for a year. I did a little meditation and I asked myself, okay, what is it that I can be grateful for in this situation? And my goal list actually from 1989, that of course I wrote when I was 6,
yes.
popped into my head.
Uh-huh.
And there was about 80 different items on it. It was, the first one, buy a house, check, had done that. But the second one, to become a professional motivational speaker. The third one was to write a book. And it was almost at that moment that I felt this physical weight that goals that had been on my list for more than 20 years were finally given this opportunity to come to fruition. Where if I had chosen instead to wallow in, oh, how could they do that for me? And I did. I went through periods where I was ecstatic and then mad and then depressed. And you go through the whole range of emotions when you get laid off completely unexpectedly.
Right.
But when you can find that one thing to be grateful for, it has been transformational. My friends will say, oh, Lisa, that was a blessing in disguise. And I'm like, oh, honey, there was no disguise.
Right. Right. Now, when you talk about Grategy, it's kind of interesting because, and you've talked about this a little bit, it seems that there's a conflict when something bad happens or you're in a bad relationship or something has just gone wrong. And to have gratitude, and you've just explained that, but can you take it a little further? It seems like there's such a conflict there in emotions. And I think those of us that perhaps have not practiced Grategy kind of have a tendency to say, oh yeah, well, yeah, right, sure. I mean, that's really going to help. And how do you defend or even go on the offensive and say, Grategy does work. Gratitude does work. And it is so powerful. How do you convince people to actually try that? I mean, obviously you've seen the good results. How do you get other people to have those results?
Right. In my book and a lot of the programs that I do, I use the acronym SHOW. And what that is the S is for the self. So using the gratitude journal, how it starts to change our perspective. But see, the thing is that it absolutely must start with ourselves. Because if you don't believe that this is going to work like any other type of positive thought, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's the foundation of what I bring, is that needs to start with you. And there's so much research about gratitude that brings us into the H, which is health. And there are actually gratitude studies that show the effect on the immune system, the effect on the heart, the effect on your sleep, your stress level. So when it comes to people that are saying, oh, that's just a fluffy topic, oh, that's not going to make a difference, I like to show the science behind it, because it absolutely does, and it affects us physically. When we're feeling better about ourselves, then we can take that into our relationship with others, which is the O. And one of the statistics, the ratios that I like to use, is the 5-to-1 positivity ratio. And what that shows, it works in the workplace, it works in marriages, is that if you have a high-performing team and in the business world, chances are that they are at about a 5-to-1 positivity ratio. So for every one negative that they're hearing at least 5 positives. It's the same thing in marriages. Dr. John Gottman found that marriages survive at a minimum of that 5-to-1 positivity ratio. And it's expressing that to people. It's telling them verbally how much I appreciate you, but also writing it down, leaving notes for your spouse, I love you, or sending thank you notes to your friends and colleagues, and just creating that relationship and appreciation, because again, we take so many people for granted because they've been in our lives and they know how we feel.
Right.
No, it's expressing it. And then the W is for wealth. And Dan Kennedy, who is a marketing guru, actually found that the reasons why a customer stops doing business with a company, 68% of the time, it's because that customer feels ignored, unappreciated, or taken for granted. So we can take gratitude wherever you want to go, whether you need to start with that foundation of gratitude for yourself, whether you want to experience the health benefits because you're having some challenges in our relationships with others. If there is that difficult person in your life, or perhaps you're at a job that you just dread going to because this person is, you just want to, your gratitude for the day is, thank God I didn't strangle him today. But before leaving for work, to think of one good thing about that person. Okay, he wore a nice tie yesterday, But the more that you start to focus on the good of that person, the more it starts to transform. And as far as your abundance in life, your personal wealth, your career, it works. So it's really accepting that these things work and knowing that gratitude is for you. It's not an IOU. You're doing this practice, you're keeping a gratitude journal, you're focusing on expressing your appreciation to others because it makes you feel good. And it doesn't matter what the other people think. Because once you start to change your focus, people around you will notice the difference, just like that girl did on social media.
Do you find yourself looking for good things during the day as opposed to just letting them happen?
It depends on the day.
Okay.
It depends on the day. I'm one of these people that I'm very goal-driven, and sometimes I like to figure out exactly how that's going to all happen and come together. And I have also found that when I just let it go, when I know that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be, I'm writing the blog posts, I'm conducting the programs, I'm meeting the people, and I let go of the result, a lot of times it comes out so much better than I could have even thought of it. So there's part of that. We're all still learning and growing, and believe me, I am not perfect in this. But I know that it's been transformational for me, and every week with my gratitude thought of the week that gets sent out to thousands of people, every week I hear from people saying, that was exactly the message that I needed to hear. And so taking that responsibility, taking those little baby steps and doing something on your own and just knowing that it will happen if you're doing these processes, if you're doing these practices little by little.
Okay. I do subscribe to your list, and the stories that you tell are just, they're super. And there are many times that, I kind of go in my brain, oh yeah, okay. So here's what happened in my case. And so you're really giving folks a kind of a stepping off point to investigate their own lives,
right?
Which is really quite helpful. When you're practicing gratitude, what would you say to someone just starting out who might be discouraged about starting to write in their gratitude journal? What would you say to them to actually get them to do it?
I like to show the science behind it, of course, but really just the commitment to 30 days to just do it and to spend that 2 minutes in reflection when you're writing something down. I'm so grateful for my husband, Scott, that in his love and support of me, and taking a minute and feeling that expression of appreciation, and then writing something else down, And I like to use the example of watching Big Bang Theory with 2 kitties sitting on my lap. I'm a cat person. So just again, going back to experiencing that, and sometimes it's difficult when you are going through a difficult period. So instead of 5, start with 3. Start with where you're at and just make the commitment to do it, because gratitude is very easy to do. It's also very easy not to do. And we expect these immediate results.
Right.
And they don't.
Gratification.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, instant gratification.
Right, and it doesn't happen. It takes a period of time before you're building that muscle and really getting into the flow and getting used to finding the good.
So 30 days in, we'll start to form a habit of doing this. And now you're 5 years in, and you said you find it a lot easier to do these days. Would you compare yourself, Lisa, 5 years and 1 day ago to now? Your personality, your outlook?
I don't think that I would have had the courage 5 years ago to do what I'm doing. I came from a sales background. I spent more than 20 years in sales, and frankly, I made a lot of money. I was very successful doing that. When my position was eliminated, there was never a thought of going back into another sales opportunity. I had been doing my gratitude practice for about a year, and on the day my position was eliminated was the day that Grategy was born. And I think it was that confidence, that knowing that this was a message that was unique, because I can talk about gratitude to any group, but I particularly like bringing it into corporations and using it as far as employee engagement, retention, recognition, showing organizations how, by simply acknowledging the people that work for them, looking for ways to say thank you, non-monetary ways to say thank you, that start to change the culture of that organization. So the message is unique in that not only is it, high content and research based, but it has a very corporate view to it instead of what we normally associate with gratitude of being a little soft and fluffy.
And not only does it work in companies, but it also works in personal lives.
Absolutely.
So, Lisa, thank you so much for being here today. It has been great, and hopefully everyone will start to practice gratitude. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Recently, we've been talking a lot about common sense deficit disorder, or stupid people syndrome, as some people call it. I was talking with a lady the other day about common sense deficit disorder, and she said, "Hey, wait a minute. I think I have a wonderful story for you," and it's true. It happened to me. Seems that when she was a little girl, she used to make cookies with her grandma. These were great cookies. They had a lot of ingredients, and they were no-bake cookies. She didn't make them for years after her grandma died. And then one day she decided to make some. She remembered all of the ingredients. She was really pretty proud of herself for doing that. And then she got to the point where she was ready to stick them in the oven. And she couldn't remember how long to bake them. So she called her dad and said, "Dad, how long do I bake the no-bake cookies?" And he said, "Honey, you do know you just asked me how long to bake the no-bake cookies, right?" I have to agree, that's an example of common sense deficit disorder. Bake, no bake.